Hi, welcome to part 2 of the last conversation of Making Like Two Humans Being. I'm Julie. Here with me, as always, is Kate Foggo, and Sally's still around. Lucas is at my feet. This is the second part of the episode that we did after Easter. This one deals with role reversal, and me in particular, Kate as well, but being cognizant of, as children of human beings, and we're watching those human beings or parents age, and what all that means and begins to bring up, and what's gonna happen. For me personally, in case it doesn't come through real clearly, we're pretty sure my mom has dementia, so we're struggling with having those conversations, getting the diagnosis, and even how that's all going to impact us. And I know Kate's got similar situations as well, so that all gets discussed. As always, we'd love to hear your comments, so please feel free to share and follow us on the social media platforms. And without further ado, we'll let you in on that part of the conversation. I'm reading a book that my cousin-in-law gave me, a book called Untangling Alzheimer's, and they talk about how the brain actually looks at the end when they do an autopsy, and how there's just these huge, because the brain's actually breaking down all 4 lobes. There's 43, 48, sometimes 40 something versions, different aspects of dementia. All of them touch all 4 lobes at some point. It's I had no idea, but there's 40 different types of dementia. Didn't know. Anywho, so
I did a course on dementia when my mum was first diagnosed. Covered four of them, I think, but apparently my mum's not following any particular pattern. They say it's Alzheimer's, but it's not following a typical pattern at all. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's because of her, because she's not wired the same as most of us, shall we say.
No, what this book is saying, they don't even know enough about it. It has been, like if you get a cancer diagnosis, they turn you over to an oncologist, a specialist, probably someone who specializes in that form of cancer, and then you immediately have conversations and plans to put in place. If they say Alzheimer's or dementia, and there's 40 some behind it, right? They don't go, they make, we'll talk about it in 6 months.
It took me
crazy
2 years for them to give my mum a diagnosis, and I lost it in the end with the doctor, because she was planning to move to Hebden Bridge. We didn't even know which Hebden Bridge it was, didn't even know there was 2 back then. She nearly bought a house. She had me put a deposit down on a house, and she was going to go and live there on her own, and she did not believe there was anything wrong with her. I was like, how are you going to live on your own, Mom? Like, without the help of people, you won't know anybody or anything. And at that point, I lost it with the doctor, because her own GP had said, this is ridiculous. She's been borderline dementia for 5 years now. I don't understand why they're dragging their feet over this. Yeah. And I think I burst into tears in the doctor's, because I was like, she won't listen to me. She doesn't believe me. She doesn't believe there's anything wrong with her.
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna let her fuck off to her. Didn't even know where Hebden Bridge was.
I know.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And that's how I feel about, we got home on Sunday after this whole thing, and I'm watching, I watch my mom constantly, and I just see the disease. And I don't just see the disease. I mean, I see nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. I don't know where the assessment is. I don't know what's happening. And I get that it's their journey. And at the same time, I get, it is this struggle that I have right now. And I said to Brett afterwards, it makes me angry, because it's like, God damn it. Why can't we just talk about it? So I realize it's not my journey. It's also my journey. Part of this is also my journey, letting go, but not letting go. Like, where do I step in? Because the other thing that happened was my dad brought me this package of mail that keeps coming to their house. And in the mail was a book. And I'm like, oh, what's the book for? He's like, oh, my neighbor gave it to me, and she said you wanted it. I don't talk to their neighbors. I have no idea. So, but I am friends with them on Facebook, because they do kind of watch out for my parents. So I texted this woman Facebook messaged this woman afterwards and said, hey, thanks for the book. I really appreciate it. And she's like,
do you know what the book was?
Yeah, it was Victoria by Daisy Goodwin. The show, did you ever see? It was a show, an English show. It was about Queen Victoria, but in the younger days, like when she first assumes and then marries Albert. And anyway,
okay, go on.
it's a couple years ago. It's kind of a fluffy book, like if you will, like I would, it's a fluff book. It's lovely. It's also not something, anyway, but here's what it is. So what happens is I thank her for the book. And she's like, your dad misunderstood. I was returning the book to him. It's his. And I wrote back, he doesn't remember that at all. And he, that's not a genre that he would normally read. And she said, I know, I thought it was weird when he gave it to me to begin with, because I didn't think that was your dad. She said, but I've kept it for so long and I finally gave it back to him. I don't think he remembers that it was actually his book, even though I said to him, here's your book back. Somehow he took it and thought it meant me. It became this whole convoluted thing. And he said that she wanted me to have it and that my name never came up in the conversation, she said. So I'm like, oh, great. Now my dad is losing it too. Fuck.
No, I know, right. There's so many explanations for that, Julie.
Mm-hmm. Are there? I don't know.
Yeah. A, it might not have been your dad in the first place. She could be completely mistaken. B, it could have been a book that he thought was yours, and that's where the connection has come from, because it's not the sort of book he normally has lying around. C, that book could have been left there by anybody at all, and he's just not thought anything of it I mean, how it got into her hands, we don't know. It's possible, of course, that she's making it all up. Whether, I really wouldn't, your father probably wouldn't remember the details around that, because he has probably gone, what the fuck? And then he's made up some story in his head to explain it, and that has now become his truth. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
When you find a book in the fridge, that's when you start to worry. No, there is stuff that just goes, and I know there's nothing wrong with me. I told you that when I was with my sister, we went into the restaurant and I left the fucking lights on and the heated seats and the battery was flat and I hadn't even locked the door. Just walked out of the car and left everything running. I hadn't left the engine on, but I'd left the keys in the ignition and the ignition on. And the thing is, I can't say I didn't do it because there was only me and only her, and the car was there and the battery was flat. Like, I really want to blame someone for this. And yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I don't know. There's the whole parents aging thing. I watched them as they got out of the car at my sister's house. They just look so much older.
But look, your mom has got your dad, whatever your dad's going through. She's not alone. I think you're feeling a burden that now, if they wanted your help, which is equally problematic because they can become very, very dependent. But I honestly, I wouldn't be trying to grab the reins too quickly, Julie. Honestly, I wouldn't. It's a fucking horrible to have to care for someone.
I know.
And they don't necessarily need it right now, and your help is not but particularly welcome. So just don't do it.
And maybe that's a topic, is bracing, because that's what is happening. I'm trying to understand what's going on because I can see the train. I see what I think is the train coming down the tracks at me, and I want to brace myself for the impact. So it's just, all the things I'm thinking about. Our RV Ned is in the driveway, just came back from being repaired. And I just want nothing more than to crawl into it and just go, right? And I'm like, what? I'm here because I'm supposed to figure out, help mom, dad, all the people. I'm like, no, I just need to go. Not that I'm going anytime soon, for the love of God. I just moved 9 times. I'm done for right now. But
it's nice that you're close to them, but don't make it a mission.
Yeah. Yeah. This trying to figure out what's so hard. Watching my mom now, and she's not, as you, I'm sure with you too, it's not your mom. It's not the woman that you.
I like mine better now.
Yeah. Mine makes me mine just makes me sad. There's anger there too. There's sad and anger because it's just so hard to watch. So hard to watch.
But is she happy?
I
You
don't.
hold it.
Do I think?
Well, okay, compared to how she was before. I mean, if she's never been a happy person, she's not, she's not suddenly going to become a happy person. But what makes you sad when you look at her? Is your perceived ideal of what a person's life should be, or do you see that she is unhappy?
I see a lot of anger and aggression, nastiness.
Which has probably always been there.
It's probably always been there, but I feel, and it could have, it's probably always been there. I balance that with the the smart, caring, kind, helped so many women, human, that I saw before as my mom. And she's not there anymore.
You know what the lesson in this is? I wish I'll have to find it. I've got so many Abraham recordings, but I don't know how you look for stuff in audio.
Maybe by keywords, it listens, the software listens to you.
I don't know if that would help.
Yeah.
It was a young man, and I don't know how I know he was Asian, but I do. And I think his father had been first generation come over. Well, sorry, when I say Asian, I mean Indian, Pakistan rather than Far East. Very strong family bonding. I don't know how I know that, and maybe I've made that up. So but that's what I saw in my head when I was listening to it. And he said that he just tries so hard to love his dad, but his dad's just really, really mean and nasty to people. And he described the situation as shock. And the man, I don't know, his father was just really rude to the cashier and all of this. And he was just like, he's so humiliated and so embarrassed by his dad. And he really wanted to, love his dad. And I was really taken aback because actually, I don't know why it took me aback, but normally Abraham and that, they don't like make excuses for people. They don't try and make you feel better about it. They try and help you see, well, they do try and make you feel better about stuff, but and they had said, I can't remember, but in just a few words, they'd basically said that his father had a really, really difficult life in some way, shape or form, and that he was just unable to be anything else. And it just took the sting out of it all. If you think your mum can't be anybody else, and what the goal is for you, I mean, it's good for her too, but the goal for you is to get yourself to a place where it doesn't matter. That it doesn't matter that she is not what you perceive to be a good person, be a nice person to be around, whatever. That actually it doesn't matter because I know it's so hard when it's people that are close to. And I find it, I would love to have that unconditional love. I think it's called agape or agapathy, something. Frank Skinner talks about getting it once for a rock star once, and he said it just like overwhelmed him. It was some rock star who, quite a controversial rock star, he was doing an interview with him, and he said he said it sounds really weird and didn't really want to talk about it to anyone because it sounds really creepy, but he was just suddenly awash with love for a fellow human being. And it's called agapathy.
It's not agape or whatever, is it?
Maybe something like that.
Okay.
And that's what we're all aiming for. And I would love to be able to walk around and feel that for people. I really don't. And it's even harder for our families, but that's the goal, is that you've got to get to a point where it doesn't matter what they're like, that you just love them anyway. I don't know how you do that, but
it's that's a part of A Course in Miracles, is that practice to do that, to look at everybody as a child, as a son. Well, I say she because I'm following Marianne Williamson's doing A Course in Miracles, but it's Son of God. So everyone is a son of God. Everyone's my brother, everybody. So that is part of the practice. And that was part of also what I was practicing at dinner that day. That's why when she says, I would not love you if you were transgender, it didn't sting like it used to sting, because I realize it's, even if that is how she really, really feels.
Yeah, it's her conditioning, yes.
Yeah, it's still, it's her conditioning. It's everything that that she was brought up with in this life. It's all of it.
and her own wounds and pain. And I think that someone said that about my mum, and I actually found myself getting quite defensive. How dare you make excuses for my mother? You know, it's like, oh. And I thought, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, but I did. I was sort of like, it's this, who was I talking about? Because reading this, heard this thing about psychopaths, and they were saying that at the root of all psychopathy, is it called? There has been another, you know, that person has suffered. I think I was telling my sister about this. And yet when I did the narcissist course about narcissists, they were saying that in many cases of narcissists, they haven't suffered. They're just like that, right? It's not that they've suffered abuse or anything like that. But my sister then said, but, you know, just because it doesn't follow the traditional abuse, there is still pain and trauma there, even though it doesn't, you know. And I remember I felt quite annoyed that how dare somebody take away my trauma and protect and how dare and offer that same protection to my mother? How could they? She's, you know, she's the one who's wronged me. I can't, because I can't. And yet, of course, there's pain and trauma in my mum's life. Everybody suffers it. We don't understand. You know, it was really hard for me to sit there and acknowledge that my mum was the only child of a bank. No, that's right. They oh, it doesn't matter, but they couldn't have children, so they adopted my aunt.
Okay.
And then they had my mum. They didn't tell the older sister. Then they did, so nobody knew she was adopted until she went to university, and there was something happened and they found out, and the sister never forgave the parents. And so, you know, there's all this trauma. My mum, the sister was always favored, and we can see now that that was probably the parents making up for the fact that she was adopted. You know, so that she appeared to be favored and was very intelligent and the bright one and the clever one and the something one, and you know, so everybody's got that pain. I don't know if it helps to acknowledge that in your mom. I haven't seen my mom since I've had that information. But, you know, to actually look at it with her and think, well, you know, we're all suffering in our own way.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I can see, I don't know what all the pain is. I know part of it is how her mom treated her. I've even talked to my maternal grandmother who has passed, and she apologized for how she never had time for my mom. So it's just, yeah, I can see all of that. I can see the pain in having, you know, gender roles put on top of her that she didn't want. She needed to, you know, and in her time, it was you had to be married, then you had to have kids, and she didn't want any of that. She wanted to have a career, which she ended up having, and a really good one, but successful, I'll say. But it's just, and I guess, wow, yeah, I know that it's all a opportunity to practice this staying in a place of love, which I guess kind of, now that I say all that, helps with the caregiver soul type, because I'm able to care for her, them, everyone, because staying in love allows that. I have to also watch for myself too. If I wasn't caregiver, or if I wasn't practicing staying in love, all the things that are happening would hurt far greater, I think. I mean, it still hurts. I'm not saying it does. I mean, I still clearly cry. Like, I started reading that book last night, and I think it ends the first chapter and with take a breath. You are not alone in like what's about to happen. And it just, like, right now, like, it just.
Which book is this?
It's called Unraveling Alzheimer's, or Untangling Alzheimer's. She uses knitting. It's her own. She is a neuroscientist, and her mother also has Alzheimer's or dementia. And so she documents the stages, and I'm not that far in it, but, you know, because my family will not talk about what's going on in what I need, which is an open, honest conversation. I need an open, honest conversation, because I'm craving, like, let us talk about this and I just need this. I just want the cards.
What are you searching for, and what do you want to come out with that discussion?
Acknowledgement of what's going on.
What, that your mum's ill?
Yeah.
Do they not acknowledge that?
No, not really. Not to the degree that would satisfy me. I feel like we're still hiding it. I mean, the fact when we went to the family wedding a month and a half ago, my extended family recognized it, and when they would come up to me and talk to me about it, it felt I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And my one aunt, who's my godmother, also said, when you need me, tell me. And that meant
Why
everything.
do you think, just because they don't talk about it, why do you think they don't get it?
I do think they get it. I think there's a closing down instead of an opening up. Like, to me, for me, there's opportunity in the conversation about it, in not being alone, not being separated. When we don't talk about it, I feel, my dad wants to manage it. So then he's separate. And then my mom is separate. And then my sister and I are over here, and we're trying to I'm trying to, metaphysically, it feels like I'm trying to we're all in this together and be one with it. But there's this separateness to it, which has been a modus operandi of my family, of the separateness, and to stay compact and closed and shut off. And that's, I'm trying, and that's the part, for me, I want to open up this dialogue, because this is a whole, there's something to learn in this. I don't know what it is. I just feel like there's to help either myself, help others, whatever the ripple effect is, but there's stuff in here I need to understand, not about the disease, but just the opportunity for spiritual growth. And I want these conversations. I want this, look at, I don't know, it just feels like it's completely shut away. And that's the part that I just don't want
to. Your sister about it? Do you talk to your sister?
Mm-hmm. And sometimes
your dad.
Say that again.
If you can talk about it to your sister, it's really your dad that doesn't want to talk about it.
It's really my dad who doesn't want to talk about it, and my sister will only talk about it so much. And then she'll say, we need to let it go. It's their journey. I know she's right.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. It's all, but I guess it's mine too. I guess that's the part.
There's no relief at the end of that.
No.
Julie, you think there will be, but there is no relief. You're pushing against nobody's acknowledging there's anything wrong with her. Okay. But if you take that away, what's left? Because that was my main anger at the doctors and everybody, and at my mum, because she refused to acknowledge it, because she probably couldn't, because she couldn't remember anything. But that was I was so fucking angry that nobody would tell her there was anything wrong with her, because I was up fighting with her on a daily basis over, she'd wander around with the keys, couldn't leave her alone, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. And she would, so on top of all the stress trying to cope with that, she would then argue with me about the fact that she had not done this and she hadn't done that and she hadn't forgotten. And, so I realized now I was looking for validation that I was right. And then when I got it, didn't change anything. Nothing changes.
I know. I'm realizing that too. Even if we get a diagnosis, nothing changes. Even if
I don't think you're pushing. I think you're pushing against it for different reasons than you think you are. You think this is important and you're getting resistance from your dad, so you're pushing harder against it. But I don't know if you really know what you're pushing against. It's like you're pushing against the resistance, but I don't really think you know why. That's what it feels like to me. And I've been there and I get it, but there might be something in it for you to go, what do I really want out of this? So your sister's acknowledged there's a problem. She's saying, let it go. You don't want to let it go. Why do you not want to let it go? What is it about this situation? What is it bringing up for you that you can't let go of? Because this isn't just about your mum or your dad. Well, it might be, but it's not necessarily the scenario. There's something else in there that you're pushing against.
I wonder if it's, this is what just came to me for my guides. It's the proving my worth with them.
And you want to be right.
And I want to be So it's just, this is like I'm getting this as a knowing from the guide. So it's hard to, like, I just know I can feel it. And so it's hard to articulate. So they're going to help me. So, so I've always wanted something different than what they had to offer. And to find what that difference was, or to satisfy, not satisfy, but to explore, like the exploration, the living in many different places, the doing things my way. Like this was me. Yes, they're there and yay. I just needed to go other places and do other things. That always being different, always trying new things, always this whole spiritual stuff. There is that whole residual of not being around and not being good enough, and then not feeling like they were even good enough, or like there's a whole sense of not good enough because I was always away and wanted to be away, but I always felt like I was taking care of them. See, I'm justifying. This is to understand what's happening with my mom and get the diagnosis and then set her up. That is me paying penance for following my heart. And that is what I'm coming to terms with, that I don't have to pay a penance. And there's forgiveness for myself in that too, that I'm like, all this is like just downloading. I don't have to pay a penance.
Because you're trying to make it right for them and you can't.
Right. I don't even know what right would be for them.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. And I want it set up so nicely and in a bow so that I can go back to Alaska.
Is that really what you want?
If I had right now, ultimately, yeah, I mean, I miss it so much. But that's tied to a place. There's a sense of there's something integration wise with nature that I have to a degree here. It's just not the same. So I'm staying like completely open to where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be, and just being present. And I'm not trying to stretch for anything just yet, because
I think you might feel differently once you unravel yourself from this.
I agree.
From your parents. Not unravel yourself from them, but unravel yourself from this need to try and fix it for them.
Yeah, I agree.
You've seen now.
Yeah.
So that will unravel, and maybe if you can step away from that, you'll have a whole different experience.
Yeah, I agree.
It's hard, Julie. And
it's hard.
Let's not forget that you have moved house 3 times in
1 year.
Because this is what happened when we moved here. Because I did the same. We moved into Crete because I didn't want to. It's just complicated living and then moving house again, and it's work.
Yeah.
And then all this with your mom, plus Brad changing jobs twice. On top of all of this, you've been doing your qualifications. You're starting a new business. It's a lot.
Yeah. So here's something that's interesting too, is the question that I've had for a couple of weeks now is my beloved pupper Lucas, who's on the floor here, is constantly at my feet, always sleeping at my feet, always by my side. Even when I get out of the shower, he comes in and lays on and we have like this narrow bathroom, and he lays at my feet. And I ask him, like, okay, what is going on? And it is this grounding, settling, things are shifting, things have shifted. And it's just this like, even at so I bring him, we don't leave him alone. So he comes to my sister's house for Easter dinner. The whole entire time he was sleeping on top of my feet. And I know that's why. It's just fascinating to me And again, also it all brings up not worthy, like I'm not worthy of that kind of unconditional love. You know, it's just a whole complicated mess of everything. And I don't want to say mess because it is what it is. It's not messy. I don't want to judge it as negative, but it's
lots of different things.
So-
They're all individually quite simple. It's just it's just a lot of them.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on right now. Huh. Just when you think you like get to a place and you're like, oh, this is a go. Whoo, off it goes again.
I've been listening to Jess Lively's I told you about the channeling. I was really interested in that. And she does, they call it inner voice. And I'd signed up for this freebie course, and then I realized it was halfway through the course. So I was like, oh bugger, because I wanted to watch it from the beginning. And I emailed them and I said, look, when are you going to do it again? And they said, we're not, but if you go back to your dashboard, you can find all the recordings. It's like, oh wow, brilliant. So I've been trying to work, I've got so much stuff I want to do, Julie, and this feeling that I'm not getting anywhere, the more, and I've still got this and I haven't finished it. And I know this is really useful. I could keep asking, is this useful for me to do it? And I know it is. I just don't know what. But what was my point? So she was doing inner voice, which is like us, but it's actually talking. There's a point to this, but it's talking to your inner voice as opposed to your guides. So we'll need to try that sometime, because I was fascinated by it.
Yeah.
But she was saying, that's right. I really, really liked her. The lady who took the course. So she qualified in this, and she said she spent so much time with her inner voice, because for her it's meditative, it's bliss and all of that she completely detached from the world. And then she said it was sort of, your life goes in pendulums when you do anything like this. And then she said, like, suddenly all her people, her classmates, they were all being really successful, they'd all started their own businesses, and then she just like crashed. It's just interesting to see. And she said, and then she had to go through it all again. It was just another layer. Like at one point she thought this was the best thing ever, and then she's like, I don't understand it. I've done all this work and I'm feeling worse than I ever did. And what was interesting is when one of the questions was, has it really changed your life? And she said, yes, it has. And I can see, and it's exactly how I feel. I can see how much happier I am, but it hasn't fixed everything. There is still more to do. There's this like, we think, because I can see how miserable I was before, but there's still this underlying sense of frustration, which I know I have to get rid of I haven't arrived at where I think I'm supposed to be, because I'm not blissful. Still a lot of shit.
Yeah.
But hearing it from her, and she comes across as so not accomplished, not in the glossy way accomplished. I don't mean that. I just mean when she took someone through it. But you and I could do this, and I'd really like to do it, because it is an interesting, just a slight nuance. And I would like to speak to my inner voice and all guides to understand what the difference is. I mean, inner voice is you, so it's your higher self.
Yeah.
But when we talk to guides, they are not our higher self, or are they? Is it a mixture of both, or are we all one and the same? I've Googled it, but obviously people have different opinions. They say there is a difference. So I'm assuming the difference is just in the intention. So it's a bit like automatic writing, but just doing it verbally, which I find obviously easier.
Oh, that'd be cool to try. Let's totally do it. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on this so much stuff. Brad's going away, not this weekend, but next weekend. So I have promised myself I will do nothing. If I do anything, it will be meditation, reading, walking the dog. That's it. No baking, no nothing. Because my guides, particularly one, keeps taking my hands, like this is the latest iteration, takes my hands, and he's looking right at me like if you were right here, and just like right, and you would take both my hands and guiding me to the top of a It's a beautiful cliff, like a mountain cliff, and there's like trees, so it's really lush and overgrown and all of that. And just down below, not too far, is a beautiful river stream that's babbling. And so he and I sit, and then my Aslan, one of my first guides sits right here, and we just sit. And that's all he wants me to do. This is St. Francis, by the way, but the two of them just, and that's all he won't say a thing. That's all they want me to do right now. And I'm like, okay, so I'm working on the need to write down to-do lists, all the things I have to do, and allowing myself to just sit. And it's so interesting too, the deer, I see a million deer like all the time. And what's fascinating is I'll be walking along a path, or Brad and I, now we get into the habit, there's benches all along these trails that we walk, and we'll sit on a bench. And all of a sudden we'll realize we're being watched. And over in the distance behind the brush is a deer just staring at us. And on Sunday there was one, and I just filmed it, and it did not move. I swear, for several minutes. I didn't film the whole entire encounter, but it was just, and I just heard, be quiet and you'll see all of nature's secrets. So I have to post that one, but yeah, anyway. Oh.
It's interesting that you just need to, because like you say, you're going to do nothing except meditate. But you know, a lot of the books you read and stuff like that, that's also doing. You know, if you're reading it because you're really inspired, but don't do it because it's a spiritual thing to do.
Right. Watch the signs and let them guide me. Yeah, it's the letting go and the surrendering of, like what Abraham Hicks talks, you know, follow the signs. If the signs say go here, do this, be that, wherever it feel like getting that flow. So in the weekend, if it's, I just feel like hanging here and reading a book, then I will. If I, you know, do want to, meditation is really becoming a bigger thing, which is interesting too. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of this inner voice thing, because it's a sort of form of meditation, if you like. Because I do like meditating, but sometimes I fall asleep. But like this morning I just did 8 minutes because I didn't have time, because I went swimming for dawn, which was just beautiful. But I'm not obsessive about it, but I just, you know, I still feel this, well, you know, you're not achieving anything, guest house is shut, you haven't got any business, you haven't got any clients at the moment, and you're not, you know, and I just can't be asked for the social media, stuff like that. I've got all these ideas, and then I just can't be bothered, and there's another bit of me that goes, well, does it matter? It doesn't have to be today.
Yeah.
I know everyone says, oh, you've got to do it this, you know, but it's not, I don't have to become successful tomorrow. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be never. I could just retire and do nothing, which is what I really want to do.
And what is successful? Yeah, I know. Interesting.
How do you feel?
I feel like I feel really good. I feel very relaxed. I feel very chill. I feel like stuff is unraveling in a good way. Like the knot's not so tight. I feel like, no, thank you.
You're welcome.
A lot bunched up in there.
It's just, yeah. Oh, it's all hard. It's just writing that about, just written my blog actually, which is, I enjoyed writing it. I just sat down and wrote it, got it all done, but now I'm trying to do my newsletter, stuff like that. But I am spending more time just going, yeah, feels good. I like doing nothing, not nothing, but just doing stuff. And then I get all panicky because I've got 6 hours of this, 8 hours of this course to listen to, and you know, my conscious brain's going, well, do you really need to do it, Kate? And it's like, well, I want to, but I actually find it quite hard to sit and listen to stuff like that.
I like to listen to stuff when I'm baking. I take it in more when my hands are moving with something.
Maybe I should do it while I'm going for a walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I used to do that more when, if you're busy with your hands, maybe I should do some painting. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, if you want to talk more, Julie, just let me know. Do we want, sorry?
I said I will. It's interesting to me too, like when I step back and observe me, that this whole, how this whole idea of self-expression and talking and not, that was also part of the practice on Sunday, was when should I say something? When should I, this balance, because I'm trying very much to talk more. Sometimes it's just not, it's like, okay, no, that's ego right there. It doesn't matter anyway. But this also need to ask for, like, I don't always identify when I need help or when I'm getting stuck in my head. So that when we were in that conversation on Monday night and one of our colleagues said, Julie, you're being quiet, what's going on? And it was like, oh, and that's what triggered all of this too.
And that's interesting though, because this is what the inner voice, and we use this expression. I sort of know what it means. Well, I don't really like the expression holding space for people. It's like you've got all these answers, Julie, but you just get so wrapped up in it that even me just going, tell me about that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, isn't it? Because you know all this. I'm not telling you anything that your guys haven't told you,
Yeah.
It's actually just, and I guess that's what means holding space for someone, giving them the time with their own thoughts just to actually let them come out.
Yeah.
And that's what all this inner voice stuff is basically, they basically get into the sort of state we do when we're talking to guides.
Yeah.
But then I ask you the question and you tell me what your inner voice is telling you.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fabulous. Yeah, because even when I go quiet like that, like on Monday, I'm not even realizing that I am invoking the workarounds of being quiet in a situation like that to satisfy the negative belief of not worthy. Like that's what, just as you were describing all that, that's what just came to me, like, oh, I wasn't even aware that I was doing it, the workaround. Yeah.
Because if you were someone else, you might go, well, do you know what, girls, I've had a really shit week and I'd really like to talk about it.
Yeah. And that's never me. Like, oh gosh, I'm not worthy to like share. Like,
well, thank God for psychics, eh?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you saw in the webinar thing that with our teacher, she started rattling off everything that was going on with me. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. That right there, I just realized the guides are giving me like a pat on the back. The fact that I recognized it, that was progress. And that I raised my hand was progress. And said, this is going on with me. That was progress. Like, oh, yay me. Oh, yeah.
Thanks for watching. I hope that somebody will find that useful. We have put a couple of the books. I have a book that I read, Contented Dementia, that I read, and I've got one that Julie read as well. I'll put them both in the show notes for anyone that's struggling with the same issues. I hope this isn't too chopped up. The editing was a bit of a challenge, but hey, if you made it this far, it can't have been that bad. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, because you can like and follow on, I don't understand the difference. Anyway, whatever it is about us, do it for us on Facebook, Instagram. If you subscribe to the channel on YouTube, you'll also get notified when there are new episodes. And that about wraps it up. I'm Kate Foggo. This is Julie Hurt, I think, and we are making light very confused human beings.